It's the Chiefs and Broncos Sunday from Arrowhead Stadium, so naturally, we'll bring in the Coloradoan to help us break this one down, James Palmer from NFL Network. James, it's been like a week. What's going on, my man? What's been new?
I know. Have you guys missed me? I've been applying for condominiums in maybe the Plaza area because I've been spending so much time with you. But hey, man, I was with the Broncos last week in Drew Lock's first road start down in Houston. So that's where I was. I know you guys were up taking care of business in New England.
Yeah, that one was a whole lot of fun. And we're going to get to Drew Lock here in a second because there's a lot of storylines here with that one. But I want to start with that game in Foxborough because the one standout for me for the Chiefs, other than the defense stepping up for the third game in a row and really playing well enough to kind of carry the team to that win, was just that the Chiefs didn't look intimidated. And there was a lot made of Chris Jones getting in the face of Tom Brady and the other guys doing the same, that it really felt like kind of a statement win for the Chiefs. From either your perspective or just people that you talk to around the league, do you feel like the Chiefs may have answered some questions with that win up in Foxborough?
I think it's specifically that win, but you're right. The last couple of weeks, what this defense has been able to do is really kind of takes me back to 2 weeks ago when I talked to Tyrann Mathieu on the field when, Pat doesn't throw for a ton of yards and they ended up putting up a big number still against the Raiders. And he goes, nobody's going to remember what happened in the first part of this season if we play defensively like we think we can play down the stretch. And he's right. And everybody's talking about the way they've played the last handful of games. And if that continues through December, that's all we're going to be talking about. We're not going to talk about the struggles that they had at the beginning of the year. And you're right, it is a statement because I've covered a million games there. And it is so hard to win there, specifically when it's a later start. And it's such a difficult environment, specifically this late in the year. And I think the big plays that they made at the biggest moments of that game show me kind of more than a little bit than what they did the entire game. When you have Brady in the position he was at the end of the game and you make plays the way they did, I think that's a massive statement considering where the game was played.
Yeah, and I think the other takeaway, and you look at all the numbers and all the stats, that the one trend coming from that game is even though the Patriots put up 16 points, all of those points came off some sort of help, whether it was via penalty or via turnover, whatever it was. The Chiefs defense really did go out and dominate that football game. And that kind of goes into this next point that I want to bring up. And you mentioned it right off the start with Drew Lock, that if you would have brought up this game a month ago, it wouldn't have had the same energy, this matchup, that it does right now. And that's directly because of the rookie quarterback and what he's done. For you being around the Broncos so much this season, living there in Colorado, are the people there surprised at how quickly he was able to find success, even though we know it's just 2 games, but he's found a lot of success early?
They're surprised because really the hope was that he wasn't going to play at all this year. This was going to be a redshirt year, and they had a lot of high hopes for Joe Flacco playing in this style of offense where he had a lot of success with Gary Kubiak running it for 1 year when he was in Baltimore. Well, obviously things didn't work out for Joe, goes on IR with the neck, and then people started to wonder, all right, let's give the kid a chance, let's see what he can do down the stretch, and he's brought a lot of energy back here. I mean, their last home game in Denver, and this is something that does not happen here, there was 19,000 no-shows. I mean, that just doesn't happen in Denver. And now I think when you see them come back home, it's going to be a completely different story because of Drew Lock, because of what he has done. And you said some success. I mean, I think he's the only guy to ever have over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in their first road start. Talked to Peyton Manning a little bit before that start to kind of get a little bit of a gauge for it. And I think he brings an added energy to this offense. I talked to guys last week on both sides of the ball. He talks to everybody in that locker room. Defensive players are like, man, he brings swag to that spot. Chris Harris was telling me we haven't had that confidence, that kind of feel at that spot since Peyton Manning. And it's just kind of the way he carries himself. It's infectious, doesn't take himself too seriously, has a lot of fun while he plays, and has a ton of confidence. And you look at the way he threw the football around down in Houston, nobody expected that to happen, probably except Drew Lock.
I've got to ask because people around here know. I mean, he went to high school 15 miles southeast of Arrowhead Stadium, then went to the University of Missouri. So there's a lot of fans that are Chiefs fans that have also watched him play going back, to when he was 15, 16 years old. So the other question for you, and you kind of answered it there, is just how has he handled the success, even though it's just been a couple of games and he was supposed to redshirt, or they didn't expect him to play right away. How have you seen him handle the success over the last couple of weeks?
When we talked to him, and they were being really coy 2 weeks ago, remember the Broncos didn't announce who their starter was going to be, even though Locke was taking 75% of the reps, and we were watching, they watched the first part out there at practice. He's the first one taking reps. We all kind of knew he was going to be the guy. And even in the locker room that week talking to him where he couldn't really say he was going to be the starter, he just carries himself like he's been the guy since pretty much 8th grade. And it's kind of true, right? A guy that was a star in college, and a star in high school, a 4-year starter. He's been through everything, right? He's been through some lows in a really difficult conference, and nothing really seems too big for him. And I talked to Vic Fangio about that. I said, how did you know after that first start that it wasn't going to be too big for him? He said, I didn't really know. Honestly, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But when we saw that first start, we were able to put a little bit more on him and do a little bit more because of the way he carried himself. And like I said earlier, that spreads throughout their entire offense and their entire sideline. I was on their sideline in the last couple of minutes down in Houston, and his personality and the way he carries himself on that bench spreads through everyone. It's a young nucleus. It's a really young group on offense that he's leading now. Yeah. And I just think they're having a lot of fun behind the rookie quarterback.
And I've got to ask, because I love stats. I love looking up stats. That 78% of the time through his first 2 games, Drew Lock has been ahead. He hasn't trailed yet in a game. He's either been ahead or the game's been tied. How much do you feel like the Broncos coaches, knowing that they're not going to make the playoffs this year and that he's had early success, at some point it would seem that the coaches and the players and the front office there want to see how he handles some kind of an adversity? How does he handle when the team gets behind early? How does he handle when he makes a mistake that leads to them falling behind, whatever it is? So for the Chiefs defense, what do they need to do to try to give him that adversity, particularly early in this game, to not continue that momentum, that confidence that they're playing with right now?
Yeah, right now, what does Denver want to do, right? They want to check all the boxes when this season ends to see if Drew really has a check mark on all of them. And I don't know if you can hear my dog Hank, who's trying to make an appearance here. He's selfish. He wants to get involved in this.
Bring him on.
Just so badly. He just loves the limelight. But the way Drew handled his first road start, that's a check mark. How does he handle going back to the place, like you mentioned, growing up 15 miles from Arrowhead? How does he handle that environment where he told me his mom a couple months ago, by the way, snatched up as many tickets as she could to get a pretty good sized section going for everybody that they know there. How do you check off each one of these boxes for Drew Lock? And this is going to be another big one. You mentioned having had to play from behind. That gives him the entire playbook, right? They can run, they can throw, they can do everything. I thought Rich Scangarello called a really, really good game against the Texans. Even though Drew was making a lot of really great throws, guys were running wide open. I mean, players were wide open. The Texans' game plan was to shut down Cortland Sutton, their go-to guy. And they did that. But Drew just went other places with the football, and Denver kind of had an understanding of that. The health of Noah Fant's going to be important on Sunday against Kansas City. So what happens is, if he gets behind, he is a guy built to throw the football all over the yard, right? So I don't think that's going to faze him all that much, that he wants to keep taking shots. But you're right. It's going to be another spot, if Kansas City can put him in that position, that Denver's going to try to find out if he checks all the boxes, if they have a high pick, if they should use it on a quarterback or not. He's trying to answer all those questions. And I'm not going to lie to you that they probably hope he gets put in a couple of those situations so they can get the answers to them.
What's the magic number, James? How many points do the Broncos need to score to give themselves a chance to win in this game?
I think you're going to need to keep doing what they're doing, BJ. I really do, because I don't see the Broncos. Now, the Broncos defense did a really good job against Deshaun Watson. We can go back a week, and Vic Fangio called up some really interesting things, dropping linebackers on the outsides, doing some things to confuse Deshaun Watson. But at the same time, we don't want to give the defense too much credit, considering the score what it was that early, and it was really over pretty early in that contest. But this defense against the pass is really good. They do some things differently. The way they pass guys off and their communication in the secondary. When I talk to those guys, they say, we do more pre-snap passing guys than maybe anybody else does. But when that communication breaks down, you have that touchdown that DeAndre Hopkins had last week where guys just run wide open and free. That's going to be a problem with all the talent that the Kansas City Chiefs have. Chris Harris, one of the best corners in football, told me last week, I think the Texans and the Chiefs are the best wide receiver groups in all of football. So they're going to have their hands full. All
right, you know the deal. Before we let you go, what is your prediction? Do the Chiefs win a 9th straight against the Broncos on Sunday?
I think they do, and I think early on, and this is just a crazy prediction of mine, I think Drew Lock's going to be amped up. He was really amped up for his first start. Playing there in Kansas City, I think he's going to be going, right? And I can picture a ball just sailing on him, and maybe there's an early turnover just because his nerves are going, and that's going to hurt him a little bit. But I do think he still throws the ball well. I do still think we keep seeing some more growth, in Drew Lock, and he puts up some points. So I'm going to say 35-28 Chiefs.
Okay, that's a good one. Chiefs fans are going to like it any way they can get it. The victory. Thank you, James Palmer from NFL Network, breaking down Chiefs-Broncos for us on Sunday. James, we'll see you soon.
All right, buddy. See you Sunday.